your body can start failing in heat surprisingly early. Sweat stops evaporating, core temperature starts climbing, and eventually, the body's own cooling system can fail. Researchers discovered this by putting healthy volunteers inside a climate chamber and slowly raising the heat and humidity. Long before conditions reached anything like the hottest places on Earth today, the body could no longer shed heat fast enough to keep its core temperature stable. But our ancestors evolved in environments where extreme heat wasn't an exception. It was the background of everyday life. So how did they sleep through hot nights without the technology we now depend on? That's the question this story is really about. And the answer isn't what you'd expect. You'd assume ancient people just endured it, gritted their teeth through miserable nights the way we imagine a soldier might. But the evidence tells a very different story, not one of toughness. One of strategy, quiet, inherited, written as much into the body as into behavior. And once you see the full picture, you'll understand something modern medicine rarely mentions, that the discomfort you feel on a hot, sleepless night isn't a malfunction. It's an old system, still intact, simply missing the conditions it evolved to expect. Start with the body itself, because it's stranger than it looks. Humans carry millions of sweat glands across their skin, densely packed across the body, an unusually powerful cooling system among mammals. Most other primates can't do this. Thick fur traps heat instead of shedding it. So somewhere in our evolutionary past, we made a trade: fur for airflow. Naked skin became biological air conditioning, and it let early humans stay active through the hottest hours when other animals were forced into the shade. Which sounds like an advantage with no downside. But here's the twist. A body engineered to survive punishing daytime heat still has to switch off completely to sleep. And sleep doesn't care how good your cooling system is. It still has to happen in the leftover warmth of the night, with nothing external helping you along. For years, most sleep research came from people with mattresses, walls, and light switches, which tells you almost nothing about how humans slept for most of history. That changed when UCLA researcher Jerome Siegel did something almost nobody had tried. His team fitted wrist monitors on people in 3 traditional societies with no electricity at all: the Hadza of Tanzania, the San of the Kalahari, the Tsimane of the Bolivian Amazon, and simply watched what real bodies did across real hot nights. You'd expect them to fall asleep the moment it got dark. No lights, nothing else to do. But that's not what happened. They stayed active for hours after sunset and only drifted off once the air had actually started cooling. And they tended to wake as temperatures approached their nightly low, rather than simply waking at dawn. Sleep, it turned out, wasn't answering to darkness at all. It was answering to temperature. That single finding rewrites the whole picture. And it means something for you, right now, tonight. Every time you're lying awake, sweating, waiting for a room to cool down before you can finally drift off, you're responding to some of the same temperature cues your ancestors had to respond to, just without the reward of open air and a falling desert temperature to help you along. But biology alone doesn't explain everything. Waiting for the air to cool wasn't enough. Humans had another trick. They kept moving. Anthropologists studying some hot climate societies have described people making small, active adjustments through the night, shifting toward cooler exposed ground as the Earth released the heat it had stored during the day, changing position, staying near whatever airflow could be found. Details like this vary by place, and haven't all been studied with the same rigor as Siegel's sleep tracking work. But the broader pattern is consistent. This wasn't taught in any formal sense. It was absorbed, the way a child absorbs when to speak quietly or when to duck under a doorway, passed down simply by growing up inside people who already knew it. But temperature wasn't the only danger waiting in the dark, and this is where the story gets genuinely strange. You'd expect that on the hottest nights, the last thing anyone wanted was more heat. Surely you'd let the fire die. And yet, across many of these same communities, small fires were deliberately kept burning through even sweltering nights. Why add warmth to warmth? Because the fire wasn't for warmth. Research into insect behavior has found that wood smoke measurably cuts the landing rate of mosquitoes. The mosquitoes that spread malaria, a disease that has shaped human history and may even have influenced human evolution. So, a trade was being made, night after night, by people who likely never explained it in these terms. A little more discomfort from heat, in exchange for a lower chance of a bite that could kill you. Comfort lost, survival gained. Shelter told the same trade-off story. You'd expect a solid enclosed structure to be the safer choice against a brutal night, but full enclosure traps body heat with nowhere to escape, sometimes making 4 solid walls more dangerous on a scorching night than sleeping in the open beside nothing but smoke and starlight. So many hot climate shelters were built almost the opposite way. Thin walls, raised sleeping surfaces, deliberate gaps for airflow. Protection, redefined not as a seal, but as a controlled leak. But there was another layer to the strategy, one that had nothing to do with buildings, fire, or airflow. They weren't sleeping alone. Sleeping in groups, close enough to hear a shift in someone's breathing, meant a child overheating or an elder struggling in the night rarely went unnoticed for long. Community wasn't just emotional comfort. It was a monitoring system, built from relationships instead of instruments. Now, here's where popular imagination adds something the evidence doesn't fully support. There's a tidy legend that ancient people in hot climates simply slept through the punishing midday heat in long naps and lived by night instead. A built-in siesta, hardwired by biology. It's a satisfying story, but Siegel's data complicates it. Across the Hadza, San, and Tsimane, daytime napping happened on only a small fraction of days, and heat alone didn't reliably predict when. The real pattern was messier, more individual, shaped by hunger and work and circumstance. Not one universal rule stamped onto every hot climate culture in history. Where the siesta does show up as a strong tradition, in parts of the Mediterranean and Latin America, it looks more like culture layered on top of biology than something inherited directly from deep prehistory. There's one more twist, and it's the one that lands closest to home. You might assume that modern cooling technology simply replaced these old strategies, made them obsolete, filed them away as no longer necessary. But some researchers have begun asking a less comfortable question: whether living inside constant climate control has changed how strongly our bodies respond to natural temperature cues in the first place. The very signals that once told us when it was safe to fall asleep and when to wake. It's an open question, not a settled one. But if there's anything to it, we didn't just outsource the problem. We may have started losing some sensitivity to the instrument our ancestors relied on to solve it. Step back, and a bigger pattern comes into focus. And it's not really about sleep at all. It's about a species whose real advantage was never brute toughness. It was attention, a cooling system efficient enough to outlast other animals under a relentless sun, a willingness to time rest around temperature instead of convention, a readiness to accept one discomfort, heat or smoke, to avoid a worse one, mosquitoes, exposure, an unshielded night. None of it required suffering silently. It required constantly reading the environment and adjusting, the way no thermostat could ever do for them. And that's the quiet reversal sitting underneath this entire story. We like to imagine modern comfort as the finish line of some ancient struggle against nature, that our ancestors merely endured what technology has since solved. But what the evidence actually shows is a body and a set of behaviors working together with real precision, long before anyone understood the biology behind either. So the next time a hot night keeps you tossing under a fan that hums uselessly against the heat, know this: somewhere in your own skin, in glands you never think about, the same ancient negotiation with temperature your ancestors ran every night of their lives is still quietly running in you, still waiting, as it always has, for the world to finally cool. And if you want to uncover more of the hidden science behind the things your body does every day, things you probably never stop to question, subscribe. Because the human body isn't just built for the modern world, it's carrying millions of years of ancient survival with it.